Of course, we all grew up in the oil field. I mean, my dad did and I did as well. And then spent many years out there working. So, I mean, when you're on location, when you're at a rig, I mean, it's the outdoors. It's just the crisp, clean air.
It's just extremely exciting. You can't really wrap your arms around or say enough words to really describe the experience. Of course, Dad was out in the field and lived on rigs and lived in stuff that obviously, as a woman, I would not be qualified to do that, nor would I probably want to.
It was a great time. You could be a part of it. I remember coming down when I was 7 years old. You'd come down with Dad to the office, go through the drilling reports, and kids would, throw out paper clips and water bombs out the 14th store and do these things while they were checking the mail.
Well, I remember it ever since I was a kid. I mean, I remember going out to the ranch in Parker County with my great-grandfather and Tex and my father and my Uncle Charlie and swinging from the cables and falling in the mud, and I didn't know what anything was back then. And I think I lost my first tooth when I was on a rig with my Uncle Charlie and my dad in Wyoming.
When I was 10 years old, my daddy and his partners had a well in East Texas called the Frank Lathrop. He was sitting in the hotel one night and a fella came in and said, "Mr. Moncrief, I'm Frank Lathrop and I work at the Kelly Plow Company and I've got a 40-acre farm out here and I'll give you half the royalty if you'll drill a well on me." And my dad got up and said, "Mr. Lathrop, you done got yourself a deal." And he drilled the well and hit the big one, of course, in 1931.
That was in East Texas, and they shut down the schools and so forth because they were going to bring in the Daisy Bradford.
It was quite an event, and all the schools were out and people were there, probably a few thousand people, because times were hard and they were hoping something good would happen. When they turned the well on, it kind of coughed a little bit and went out a few feet, and then cough went out about 20 feet, and then all of a sudden it roared out there about 200 feet across the slush pit, and everybody was clapping and yelling, and my dad and his partners, they were wading out with the oil and the slush pit way above their knees. And I went over and I hugged on my mother, and I said, "Mother, when I grow up, I want to be an oil man." And I never changed my mind about that.
The real wildcatters were risk takers. Dad always said is you just find one good deal. And it was really true.
I was in his office one day, and he had a picture on the wall. I don't know if it's still there or not, but it was of an oil well in Longview, Texas. He said this was where we started, right here. This got us going. And I bet you every oil man, from Jerry Jones to T-Bone Pickens to you name it, could point to that place that got them started.
My dad had a sense of, he became a good geologist by being a landman, and he had a knack of knowing the areas to go. So it was due to my dad's knowledge of the oil business and having the feeling, knowing where to go.
It was always around, and it was always there. I don't know if I knew any different. It was just in our blood.
It's a tough life, but you see the action and the power, I think, of a drilling rig and the manpower that goes into it. And when you think about how deep you're drilling into the earth and what you're doing, I mean, it's just all in all a powerful experience. And I think it's so exciting because you don't know what you're going to hit next.
It's like golf. When you get a little more in the big leagues, you've already been pared down. The guys who can't do it aren't there anymore. So when you were in the business, there were the people that were around and had survived it. After all, it is gambling. It's just like poker. You have to, only so much money you do, and you take a chance, and you just don't take more of a chance on any one thing than you can do. And it was a matter of allocating that and being careful, and that's what wildcatting was about.
the oil field was home to us. It was, and it is certainly, you know.
When I was a child, really, it was my mother that pretty well raised me, you know, till I was 13 or 14, and they dropped me off at Culver Military Academy when I was 14. I thought I was going to die, but it turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me.
Culver was probably more meaningful to Dad than it was to me, although I think it was terrific, great school. And I learned things that I couldn't have done now. Young men especially learn habits that they don't learn from their mother, and they never listen to their fathers all the time. And so military school is really good for that.
My mother and Dad were as good a parents, of course, as a fellow could want. And they always told me if I wanted to smoke or drink or anything, just do it at home. And therefore, I never had to go out and smoke marijuana or goof off or something. After I went to Culver, I became more of a daddy's boy, and I was mostly with my daddy all the time. When I started in the oil business was when I came back when the war was over. I was out in the Pacific in the Navy, and of course having my dad to teach me the oil business, to be able to go along with him to see all the people that he knew. That's how I got started in the business. And after I went with my dad, I followed him around just all the time.
My dad and granddad were extremely close, yeah.
Granddad liked people. He could listen to you if you walked into his office. I mean, he'd listen to you for hours. He was interested in what you had to say, and you always felt that way. It was a great advantage he had, and of course he was smart and all those things, but he really listened, and he was a people person.
He was a big, tall, good-looking guy. The girls loved him, had a lot of bull, and no, he was a good guy, quite outgoing, and that helped him. That helped him in the business. He knew a lot of people, and they respected him. There wasn't any doubt about that.
He was a remarkable guy, a remarkable man, you know, being self-made. He was a leader in the industry. You know, of course, my dad was right there with him during all that time.
Their relationship was one that was extremely close. In those days, my great-grandfather was older, but hearing the stories and seeing how they were together, and you know, you didn't have to be in the office to feel that closeness that they shared.
Well, this is Dad's office, and that's Granddad's office right over there. I mean, to where they could actually see each other, you know, during the day, and they listened to each other's phone calls. So they worked together just perfectly. They looked at everything together. They made up their minds together on the big deals, and that's just the way they operated.
I was around Monty and you know, Tex a few times when I was fairly young, and it was very clear that Tex adored and you know, respected his dad. They worked together, they play together. Anytime you're around somebody that much, well, you have to have a lot of love and respect for each other. It goes both ways.
That was a great relationship.
Well, the first time I met Tex Moncrief was soon after I came to the University of Texas in 2008, and went up to Fort Worth to have lunch with him. And Tex was the quintessential Texan. Tall, dynamic.
Tex is the kind of man who tells you exactly what's on his mind, and he tells you that in a nice, humorous way most of the time.
There's no doubt that he'll be very honest with you when it comes to anything, which I think is hard at times when it's something that maybe is tough to hear, but you know, his direct approach, I think, is, well, it's just honest.
No, he lets you know how it is. He lets you know what he expects of you, and gives you advice, and sometimes it's hard advice, but it's always good advice. Sometimes you don't take it, you know, no time to be sensitive around that.
Well, I think it's kind of fun to visit him in Fort Worth, you know, amongst all the sort of big mansions. You know, you don't realize that he's sort of there till you come right up on the house, and then you go in there, and it's in many respects the same as it was, in 1957, which is like the year I was born. It's a really cool place, great views. He's got such a wealth of knowledge and such great history about the oil industry and everything that's gone on in the state. You can just sit there and he'll tell stories for hours. I know I have to be careful whenever my wife's hanging out with him, because the two of them, I'm sure, are working on something that I got to deal with.
Dad can be a charming man when he wants to be. Now, Granddad was very charming pretty much all the time. Now, Dad's got a pretty gruff side to him as well, but that's okay. That's good.
You didn't see the old movie Giant, but I did, and that was big. And so meeting Tex was like part of Giant. I mean, he personified the Texas, what you think when you think of Texas.
And we're quite impressed with Tex's personality, of course. It's a little different from what you read about him in the newspapers, because you read about him in the newspapers, someone who's very brusque and firm and decided, but he's actually quite modest, and he's quite interesting to talk to, and we talk about everything.
First of all, he's really a smart guy.
But he's street smart. He's savvy, and he can bottom line things real easy as far as looking at deals and so forth. He can usually negate them over the phone.
He's also he makes decisions on his own, and he makes them really quickly and very effectively. And I think that's been part of the key to his success.
Well, first, Mr. Moncrief is bigger than life. When you come in as the new football coach and your building is named after him, that sends a message to you that he's very important and his family's very important.
Well, it's always, I walk in this building every day, and I have to walk right by his picture, so it's just for some reason you glance at it because it's staring right at you, and you just know that it's so great to have a supporter like that, knowing that, each and every day, even when you walk out here at night and you come in the morning, there's that picture, just like he's just watching over athletics.
I would always call him Mr. Moncrief, and he wanted to be called Tex. Well, in this state, when you're called Tex, that's pretty good too, and I still couldn't call him Tex. It was always Mr. Moncrief, and always will be. And he's got a tough demeanor, but at the same time, a wonderful heart.
He has a good sense of humor. He's at ease with people. You can talk to him like he's a member of your family, and there's no doubt a strong love for Texas and the University of Texas.
Well, of course, when I went to Texas, my first year was just very easy, and I just played a lot of golf. I was captain of the golf team at Culver.
And then when he went to UT, he tried out for golf, and he was going to make the team, but he had a little slip up on one of his classes, I hear.
I made number 3 man on the Texas golf team, but I'd played so much golf that I cut the 10-minute quizzes in a chemistry course, and I'd gotten below 50, and the professor said if you get below 50, you're not going to pass, and it made me ineligible for the golf team. So I told my daddy I was going to quit school, and he said, and do what? And I said, and be a professional golfer. And I'll never forget, he grabbed me and almost shook my teeth out.
And then, yeah, he told his dad, he said, I think I'm going to turn golfer, and Granddad went down there and said, no, you're not.
Said, my boy, you may not have any teeth and you may have a beard to the street, but you're going to get a degree. And I did. And I'd look a sad sack here caddying for Tiger Woods today, now wouldn't I?
One of the stories I heard was that when Tex was in college, his dad would call George Fancher, who was a professor of his, and just check up to see if he was playing too much golf. At that time, Dr. Fancher was a really tough professor. And Tex would go fishing and take George Fancher fish to sort of maybe influence his grade a little bit, I don't know. But it turns out that George Fancher hated fish. All the fish that Tex gave him, he threw away because he did not eat fish. And I thought that was a funny story that George Jr. told about his dad and Tex.
So I guess it didn't influence his grade a
It did not.
He was competitive on the golf course, most certainly. He and my great-grandfather were quite a team. I never have played with my grandfather. I played with my Uncle Charlie, my father, of course, but I've never played with my grandfather. Probably lucky that I didn't.
I think anything Tex Moncrief does, he'd want to win at. If he were playing poker, watch out, you know. If he was playing golf, I don't know how far he hit the ball, but I wouldn't want to bet him, you know, because that sucker would find a way to win.
The first day I was at Texas, we got here the night before the press conference. At lunch before my press conference, I had lunch with Mr. Moncrief. But he and I were sitting there talking, and it was very important to him that we go by the rules. It was very important to him that we have nice young people on our team, and it was very important to him that they graduate and they have a good experience while they're here. So he actually was one of the guys that set the tone for the press conference that first day.
I think that athletes shouldn't wear a lot of ear bobs and different paraphernalia, and should go to school and want to get a good to get a degree and make something of themselves in life.
Every time I would talk to him, it was about, how are the guys doing? Are they working hard? Are they representing us right? Are they going to class? What's happening to them when they get out? Are they getting jobs? And a lot of people talk that game. He means that game. And that was something that impressed me about him through my years at Texas.
You know, I grew up in Cleveland, which is 30 miles south of Fort Worth. So I spent a good bit of time in Fort Worth. In fact, had some relatives up there. And it was more the cattle town. It was that western area that today is a pretty big tourist area. A lot of cowboys. Ryan Lusky's boot company there, saddle companies. There was still a lot of activity going on in the cattle business and in the trains, the freight trains coming through and all. And so that was Fort Worth. It was great. There was not much traffic, you know, when you went up there.
Back in those days, there was no summer programs at the university, any universities for players. You were gone in the summer. So the coaches tried to help you get summer jobs. And Coach Pittman got me a job. This would be 1959 on a ranch near Aledo. As time went along, by the second and third summer I was out there, David McWilliams joined me. He also was recruited from Cleveland.
When I signed with Texas, he told Coach Pittman to send me up there also. So Pat and I worked up there together, and that's how I first met Mr. Moncrief. He would drive out 2 or 3 times a summer, different times, and come out, and he was always very nice. Come over, he'd find us where we were. He didn't ask if we were working, he knew we were working.
And he was typical, what you would say, Texas oil man.
He loved to talk football. He would always ask us, number one question was always, are you going to beat OU? That was his whole thing. He wanted us to beat Oklahoma, and we did, fortunately, during that time.
I got to know Tex through work on the ranch. He would come out, like I said, and look at his lake, look at the horses, and I was working different things that the foreman would lay out on the ranch. And we had jobs like going out in the lake with chains and pulling out trees so they could fish.
We probably weren't smart enough to work in the oil field. And we were pretty smart to be out and know how to trim trees and chase wasps. And then actually Timmy Dorr, a third one from Cleveland, came up the next year, right behind us.
David and Timmy were fishermen.
The last year I was fortunate because I told someone I was going to work at daylight and working until dark and only charging 8 hours because I love to fish, so it was a great job.
He paid you for what you did. He was concerned about you as a person. He'd ask about what I was studying and this, that, and the other. And I appreciated, and all 3 of us did.
That was
the greatest time I ever had working. I mean, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. So it was the greatest job I've ever had because of the relationship that we have still with Mr. Moncrief and the Moncrief family.
Yes, the football is a fun aspect. He's very interested in the educational.
Nothing fun about football, it's serious.
The University of Texas is, as you know, it's a special place, and I think Tex felt that when he was there. He played on the golf team, and you know, he loved it, and we all loved it, and you saw the passion and, you know, the spirit, being in a room and the band would come in, your heart flutters, and I feel that, and I know that's the feeling that he feels.
Well, I think he wanted to be a part of Texas. He loves this place. He loves young people and seeing them be successful. You know, he gave a gift for the Academic Center on the north end, which they've got his picture up there and got his name on it.
Well, his name's up on his building, and I don't think we can talk about the resurgence of Texas football without Mr. Moncrief and Joe Jamel, people like that. I don't think you can. And Red McCombs in the end zone area down there. That's a spectacular area.
When the athletic department at Texas put my statue and Red's in the red zone, which is the north end of the stadium that Red built, when they unveiled our statues, we were down there, and Red and I made little speeches and were kidding each other. But when they unveiled Red's statue, his statue was there, but when they unveiled mine, they showed my little pug Fool running along back of me, and Red couldn't understand. He said, "Why did you put Texas dog in there and not put my dog?"
It was funny. The family evaluates, and his family was there the day that we had the big announcement, and his family was saying, some members of his family were saying, I don't much like that image that they have of Tex. He had heard that somebody in his family had said that, and he said, "I don't give a damn about my image. I want to get my dog right." So we've had a lot of fun over that.
Well, the dog was a surprise to me, and a very big surprise to Red. I went down and saw Red and said, "We're going to do your statue with Tex in the north end." And then I went out and talked to Tex, and I said, "Tex, we're going to do your statue with Red." And he picks the phone up and he calls Red, and he says, "Red, I've told DeLoss I want my statue 6 inches shorter than yours." But I think Tex trumped it all by having his dog in his statue. And Red looked at that, and Red said, "I didn't know you could have your dog." You know, it was two men like that having fun with things like that is it's about Texas.
I'm lucky to have a continuing dialogue with Tex, and so I get a chance to talk with Tex about a number of things over time, and I enjoy those conversations a great deal. But I used to go see Tex regularly when we needed money at the university. Tex was someone who was always there and wanted to be supportive.
The approach with him is to be direct. He's direct, and I've truthfully never asked Tex for anything that he didn't do. So when you ask him something, you better be sure it's the right thing to ask.
There was a time a number of years ago that we needed to upgrade our academic center. So DeLoss and I went to Fort Worth, and we spent 6 hours with Mr. Moncrief, and he was working on a huge well with Mr. Moffett, and they were good buddies, and I had some geology in college, so it was really interesting to me, and he showed us the maps, and he did all this. Now he knew we came to ask for money.
There were 4 or 5 weeks in between the time I asked him and the time I went, and he came down to a game, and he was in the press box, told everybody that walked in that DeLoss was coming to Fort Worth to take all his money.
But we had lunch, we stayed, so at the end of it, Mr. Moncrief kind of says, "So DeLoss, what do you want?" Mr. Moncrief acts like he can't hear very well. Well, DeLoss can hear very well, so DeLoss says, "Mr. Moncrief, we want $4 million.
And he said, "Did you say 40 million?
You can't have $40 million, can you?" And DeLoss wasn't sure he heard him right, and he was just playing with him, and DeLoss says, "No, sir, $4 million." He said, "Oh, well, you can have your $4 million. I probably would have given you 40 if you would have asked." And DeLoss says, "Oh my gosh." But that's the kind of humor that he has.
And then several weeks later, he calls me and says, "Do you remember being in Fort Worth?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you remember what you wanted?" And I said, "I do." He said, "Do you remember, was it money?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you remember how much?" And I said, "Yes, $4 million." He said, "I'm wiring it to you tomorrow." The money started coming in. It came to the big foundation, not to our foundation. And they called me and they said, "It's coming in $500,000 chunks, and we're at $4.5 million. And there's another one coming in." And I called Tex and I said, "Tex, how do you shut this off?" Somebody in New York lost their job that day, be my guess.
So he was always concerned about the Texas program, and they went to him. And he wanted them to go to him. He wanted to help Texas football get better any way he could. And so we got great facilities at the University of Texas because of men like Tex Moncrief, Joe Jamel, people like that say, "Doggone right, I'm going to help my football team." And we're lucky that way.
So many of the folks that are great supporters of the University of Texas have great life stories. And we want to try to preserve that and promote that because what starts here really does change the world, and the people that start here and go out into the world really make major impacts, and Texas is one of those people that's made a major impact in the entirety of the world.
If he saw something that he wanted to do, by golly, he was going to do it. And a lot of people have benefited from that, the right kind of people. The University of Texas, TCU, and I know that east side of the stands at TCU has Moncrief's name on it.
I've got my statue in Darrell Royal Stadium and up in the Amon Carter Stadium in Fort Worth. And I don't see but my statue both places, so that's quite an honor.
That was by far the nicest part of that stadium, the east side of it. And I believe I asked Charlie one day, "What was that done?" And he said, "Well, my granddad, that was his, he loved Fort Worth, and of course they were from there, and they wanted to help TCU out all they could."
When they got in the Big 12, he helped them with their stadium, and that was important to me because TCU being successful in the Big 12 was important to me. I think it's about kids. I think it's about, he's been very successful. He's been blessed, and I think he wants to share that, and he shares it in ways that his family feel good about.
I felt that giving money to football, which supports all the other athletics, is important because by giving to football, you make enough money for the other athletics to help really hundreds, maybe thousands of young people that come to school as athletes to get ahead in life. So that's where the importance is.
The opportunity of an athlete is so unique, and the kids that come to play for Texas, their backgrounds are all over the place, but some of them, and a lot, are, this is an unbelievable opportunity that they may not be able to have had they not been such great athletes. And so helping them with that opportunity and getting them a good education at the same time, I think is what Tex sees and loves, and that's where his support has been. And it's fun to watch those kids every Saturday, put all their heart into a game and their team and their school, and to see their success, it makes you feel good.
2 weeks ago, maybe 3 now, I was up at Oklahoma State. And T. Boone Pickens gave $165 million to the football program. And people ask him the same question, "Why give to football?" And his words were, "I want to get people back on this campus, and they're going to come back during football season." They come back.
Well, the university, its reputation is built on our alumni, like Tex Moncrief, who demonstrate to the world what a UT education can do for an individual.
I can tell you, Dad, when you talk to him and growing up, he still remembered the name of his professors. He'll tell a story about his professors. I guess every alumni of the university got a different attachment to it. But his was very much centered around his people he went to school with in engineering school and his professors.
Tex really believes in education. He really believes in the mission of the university to advance his field, his industry, but he recognizes the university advances a lot of endeavors in engineering and science, and recognizes that the future of Texas is going to depend on smart people coming up with great ideas. And I think that's why he has continued to invest in the university.
It's very clear he's always had Texas close to his heart. He was a regent, a graduate. He's donated a tremendous amount of money and his time and energy to the University of Texas. In 2003, we created the second generation of this institute and named it the ICES, the Institute for Computational Engineering and Sciences.
ICES has been very successful in recruiting some of the best faculty in computational engineering and sciences.
Mr. Moncrief and the Moncrief family gave the original resources to the Institute to hire some of its first chairs. We call these the Moncrief chairs.
And the goal there is to bring in the world's best faculty in key areas of computation applied to many, many different fields.
So we're extremely grateful that he has generously given the results of his work and his lifetime accomplishments to help the University of Texas.
You really see the benefit of the endowments that you make down. We've done primarily in the engineering school, and the kind of students it's turned out.
So we point to pride to Tex and as one of our alumnuses about what a UT education prepares an individual to do in their life.
Giving back. Well, that's something that my great-grandfather and great-grandmother started, that tradition, and we were young, but we saw that, and it's one that's been carried on from my grandfather and our families, and they take it very seriously.
A man doesn't devote the kind of money and resources to an organization if he doesn't care about it, like the Moncriefs do.
And you know, it's that saying, if you give the best to Texas, then the Texas will give the best to you. And I just think that was his feeling, that he just appreciated what he had the opportunity to learn here, and it helped him so much that he wanted to give back.
Well, it means a lot to have been able to give a little bit of money to Texas, and it's a high honor. I'm very proud of it.
You look at what he's meant in the industry across Texas for so many years, you know, the profile he has in a great city like Fort Worth, all he's done for that community, all he's done for the University of Texas. It's also great to see sort of the humbleness he's got about him. And, you know, he's not that showy.
And as rich as Tex is, which he may be the richest man that I know, and he will not be happy with me saying that. But at any rate, he is the greatest guy that I know. And his interest in caring for others is great.
Now this is a big, tough Texas oil man who didn't owe me anything or anybody else.
My dad and Tex grew up in Fort Worth, and both of them attended the University of Texas. Both of them studied petroleum engineering there. They are an awful lot alike. They saw the world the same. They loved people that worked hard and played hard, and they appreciated loyalty. The generous side, I think Tex probably wouldn't want everybody to know about, but I'll give you an example. In the 80s, my dad needed emergency surgery, and the best doctor for that was in Dallas. And Tex found out about it. Tex sent his plane out to get my dad. Instead of him having to endure a long car ride into the best surgeon for his particular problem. Once he was able to go home. Tex sent the plane and took him back home. You know, to this day, I'm eternally grateful for that because I know it helped my dad a lot. That's the kind of friend he was. He would just go to any lengths for, you know, the people he loved.
You have support from people in several ways. And it can be financial, it can be political, it can be in a lot of different ways. You need some friends out there that kind of stick with you sometime when maybe some of them were jumping off the wagon and he was on for the whole ride.
You got to admire people like that.
I think in dealing with guys like Joe Jamel and Red McCombs and Tex Moncrief and Jim Bob Moffitt and Mike Myers and the so many great givers that we have at the University of Texas, the reason they give back is because of their experience on campus. A lot of these guys didn't have anything and they made their own money, and even if their parents had some money, they separated from their parents and would go make their money in their own right. And in each case, they tell me the reason they gave back is because of what the university gave them, what they learned, the experience they had on campus, and the enjoyment that they had while they were here.
I'm convinced that my father and Tex went into the oil business because of the fine example that Monty set. He was a very hardworking man. He took some risks. It paid off, and my father saw that, and I think Tex saw that. And the oil business at that time was very exciting. And I think both of them wanted to follow those footsteps into that exciting career.
We were always together, our family, and they were very close. And we had a very close-knit family beyond my great-grandfather and my grandfather. It was my uncles and my father and all of us. So we've always been very close as a family. My great-grandfather was a real, he brought everyone together. He was a real catalyst in that regard. And my grandfather Tex is the same way.
I always knew that I would work here at some point. That was always my plan, that I was going to go to the University of Texas and graduate and come work for my dad and grandfather.
From the time you were conscious of business, the only thing going on that you really thought about was the drilling of the wells you're drilling and what your family was doing. It really wasn't any other. I never thought about anything else. By the time I could drive a car before that, you know, I'd drive out the oil fields where we were drilling and go to a motel and stay with the guys and do it. We all did that.
I just loved the oil field. There was no doubt about that, being out there with those guys, you know, and roughnecking and running pipe and the various things, which I actually started here in Texas. So it's just fun. You know, it's in your blood, and it gets more so when you're out there.
It never really escapes you. I mean, your family is your business, is your hobby. And it's a wonderful thing, but it's always in the back of our minds. I mean, we're always together, whether we're in the office or whether we're outside of the office. We always seem to migrate to the subject of the oil and gas business, what we're doing, and how things are going. And it really brings us all together, and it's very special. I mean, there's not very many people that understand how wonderful it can be.
I think the thing that I like best about Tex is his family. You don't go to lunch at his office without family. So that's something he cares about, and that's a real indicator who he is.
At least once a year, sometimes more, we go to Fort Worth to have lunch with Tex and Charlie and Wes and the other staff members of the Moncrief family. And it's quite obvious, both in the conversation and the way in which the offices are decorated with pictures of the family, with the oil rigs and so on, that Tex is at the heart of the Moncrief family. And they're really, it's a very close family and very dedicated.
You know, you have a few friends in life, and if you're lucky, you have all your life a few friends, but you've always got your family, and you need to remember that.
Where would you say he is the happiest, most joyful? You know,
Dad?
in his element, yeah.
At home, or here at the office. No, that's right. He never was much on going out or traveling too much. Or when he said when he got back from overseas, World War II, that was the last time he was going overseas. So no, he loved being with his family and being at home, and he loved working. There's nothing, still does. He keeps up with it every day.
He's got the drive and the conviction in what he believes in, as well as the patience to wait for the opportunities. One of the things he always talked about was staying away from the bad deals as much as getting involved in the good deals, and that's a skill set and a mind frame that's really difficult for a lot of people, especially in today's world where things happen a little faster.
Yeah, always the deals that we made in the family were really more people deals than they were geologic deals. And we knew the geology, we knew kind of where to drill. You didn't have so much information in the old days, but what you really did was honed around somebody that you respected and the opinions that people had, whether they be with a major company or somebody that worked for you. You relied on them.
Jim Bob Moffitt, who went to Texas and played football under Darrell, came up to me one day here in Fort Worth and he said, "Tex, I got 10% of a deal left. We're going to drill some wells in the Gulf of Mexico." I said, "Well, Jim Bob, I'd like to take the deal, but I don't see how we could draw it up. It's so complicated." He said, "Tex, I could draw up our deal on the back of a postcard." And I said, "You go on back to Austin and send me the postcard in the morning. I'm taking the deal." He came up to see me many times, and prior to the deal, which is called the Davy Jones. Incidentally, they're my socks with the Davy Jones crossbones symbol on it.
The name Davy Jones, it's typical Moffitt or something to name everything after pirates and this sort of thing. But the thing that strikes me so much about Davy Jones and this history, nobody was doing any meaningful exploration at that time. We were explorationists, and yet we weren't doing much meaningful exploration. So we're here in Texas doing very well. I mean, good production, good oil, company and everything, but I don't know when it occurred to him, but he wanted to do something. It may have occurred to him one day, he said, "I haven't been drilling any real wildcats lately." I mean, he said that. He said, "I just realized it. Here comes one of the great geologists of all time, wildcat geologists of all time, Jim Bob Moffitt." But it just clicked. I was so happy for him that it came along at the right time. And he recognized it was like a gift to have a great career and everything, and then be able to do at the end of your career the kind of thing that you were doing at the first year career. I mean, when you're in business with Jim Bob, your blood pressure goes up. So it was great fun, and that was the most enjoyable thing about it to me. The most gratifying thing for Dad. It was great for everybody in the family to be involved in this sort of thing. That was really the foundation of the family, to be able to go back and see things in that perspective.
We're still doing exactly what they've been doing since they began, and exploring for oil and gas, and in the middle of one of the most exciting plays that certainly of my lifetime or my experience, but I believe one of the more exciting plays that we've been a part of in our family. And it's just, it gets a grip on you. It's exciting. You can't get away from it. You realize it's the sexiest business on earth, and you don't want to do anything else. I think we're going to continue to move forward just like we have as a family for generations, and continue exploring and finding oil and gas.
It's great that our kids are there with us to enjoy doing it too, and they'll find different satisfactions than there were. It all changes a little bit, but it's still the same oil business.
There's nothing like being out there on a rig or thinking that I go a few feet here or more and I'm going to hit the big one. It's the best business in the world. And as my dad often told me, and I know now too, there's no business like the oil business.